Yeah.
So the other big topic, we just get this one out of the way, is the Civil War. How many people watch Civil War?
I got about halfway through and I
Flash,
gave
thank
up.
you for another
I
free,
hate you.
Excellent.
Thank you for another free ticket to another horrible movie.
That was.
I got to say, it's one of the worst movies I've seen yet.
Me too.
There was
What?
no motivation for any of the characters. There was no reason to feel for them.
Can you guys just spoil it for me? Because I don't know.
Yeah, 100%. You don't know what the Civil War is even really about.
Oh,
It's
okay.
all about journalists traveling from one side of the country to the other and coming across some
to take a picture.
Adversity.
Hillbilly. So it's rational people versus hillbillies is basically it.
Oh,
I was hoping
like
there's a scene in the movie where they roll up on some hillbillies that are like obviously just murdering people, and I was hoping they would have killed the journalists, to be honest, and ended the movie, but that's not what happened.
Are you talking about with the mass grave?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you watch it, Mark?
Hell yeah, I loved it.
You liked
Great
it?
movie. Great.
What?
Hell yes.
What?
Great movie. I think you're all
Oh my
missing
God.
the point. I don't know what you thought. See, this is what happens when you watch too much anime. It's like you go to the movies and you expect to see some hyper shit. It's like sit down and listen to the dialogue and find out what's going on in the damn movie. You didn't need to know what the Civil War was about. That's not what the movie was about.
How did
It was about killing. The movie
was
about killing Trump and making sure that they dropped the Antifa massacre line in there.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
That
it was
No.
it was a glorification of journalists. That's what the movie was.
Yeah.
How was it a glorification of journalists? They were burnt out, man. They were questioning their humanity. They were not the good guys. There were no good guys in this situation. And that is the warning that we're supposed to be getting. The way that we're heading in this country, like everybody is separated, everyone is divided. The movie was trying to tell you what will be the ultimate destination, and if we keep heading the way that we're heading. It was a cautionary tale, and it just went over your head. This is something we should be listening to and thinking about and pondering.
So hang on. The movie's called Civil War, but we don't need to know what the Civil War is about.
No, because then people like you will be thinking, no, I'm not on that side. How come they took this? See, already you're talking about Antifa in this side and that side.
They mentioned it. They mentioned it.
Mark is trolling. But it's all different types of perspectives.
They mentioned Antifa. They executed the president just like they want to do with fucking Trump.
Yeah, they didn't even take him. In real life, they wouldn't shoot the leader on sight. They would They would want to bring him out and question him and get intel from him. They just murder him like a dream, like they want to do to Trump.
Now,
you guys gunplay was awful.
Hold on, Ryan. You know Mark is trolling, right? He's trolling.
No,
it doesn't seem like he is.
Watch my review. I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the movie for what it was. I thought it was some great performances. I enjoyed the symbolism between the old journalist and the new journalist with Kristen Dunst and the young girl. There was a dynamic there that I thought was interesting.
Okay.
You never wondered about wartime journalists, and when they take these pictures of people getting shot and dying, you never wondered, like, why don't they just help? Why did they just watch this stuff happen? I think this was an exploration of that. I don't think it was so much supposed to be about the Civil War. It was about this sub story that was going on.
Okay,
so it's kind of like The Walking Dead, where like the zombie apocalypse doesn't matter; it's more about the people. I haven't watched Civil War, so I don't know. Right? I have no idea.
It's crazy to think.
Grum's watching. He wanted to ask him a question.
Yeah, Mark. What was Lee's motivation? The protagonist, right?
Oh, Kristen Dunst.
Yeah,
she was doing her job. She spent her whole life doing this, capturing wartime. And
what was her goal?
Let me see now. Her goal was she was doing her job. Her job was to capture, like when the world is falling down around her, she's just doing her job. She says the people are running around acting like this is not happening.
Why was that important to her?
Oh my gosh, bro.
See, there's nothing there. There's nothing there.
Listen, bro, you want everything spelled out to you? You want like a little tweezer to put it in your mouth? It's like, bro,
basic character arc. I want a motivation.
What would have been an acceptable motivation for you if you were writing this?
All right, maybe she was so jaded with journalism, right? And that what was happening was that taking this photo would have been so important, would have been so impactful that maybe this could reignite her passion for journalism, and so she's got to get there.
or maybe it could reignite. Maybe she could have been the one that actually brought the two sides together. How about
Wait,
that?
so you don't know how this Civil War starts?
And actually go to the negotiation table. You don't know how it starts, and you don't really. It just ends with the execution.
It's not that type of movie, bro.
You don't know, but you don't have.
It was trying to show the ugliness of war and what journalists do at war. But the problem, like most journalists, don't do that. Most of them fucking sit in their Starbucks and write.
I was going to say the journalists
like
in
that
this
bitch
movie,
from Kotaku.
Embedded reporters
with their 7 roommates
with the front of the tip of the spear fire team. They don't.
The thing is, you don't need it spelled out for you completely, but even Fallout, like look at Fallout, like the game or the show or whatever, you kind of know how it starts, but you don't necessarily know about the world, but you still get an idea of how it starts, right? You already know it's nuclear fallout. You already know it's in the 50s. It's about everybody's scared about nuclear. You kind of get like the setting, but if there's no setting, you're just kind of dumped in there. You need something, right? Like something.
How many zombie movies have we watched and they didn't tell you how the zombie apocalypse?
Yeah, that's what I just said.
But you
like still get the setting of the world.
You get the setting sucks. I want to know how it started.
I do want to know how it started,
but
though,
you still
because
get an idea.
You can't even come up with you can't even come up with a reasoning why it started. Because first off, California and Texas would not go to war together. They're two ideologically different states. They're not the same at all. California is super liberal. Texas is super conservative.
Depends on
they never did break down.
And that's obviously what the Civil War would have been about. Like if we were going to go into one, that's what it's going to be because we're ideologically different. Like the trans stuff. Like I've got a hard line on kids chopping their dicks off. I would imagine people like that's what's going to drive us to this point. And they didn't even touch on that in this. Because why are they at war? Obviously, if California and Texas are together, what is it about taxes or what? Like, what's going on here?
It's about
I'd like to have known what kicked off this Civil War.
Trump being elected.
That's what messed me up. I thought they was gonna show like the actual states beefing with each other. We didn't see none of that.
Yeah, we just saw a bunch of journalists trying to get to Washington, D.C.
I actually agree with Mark on this. It doesn't matter what the Civil War is about, but you've got to have a goal for the characters. And it's not even explained why taking this photo of the president is important to begin with at all. And it's not a powerful enough motivational arc for the character.
Now, I do also want to point out
a subplot.
We've been talking about like the story elements of this. This is certainly not a movie for me. Like I would not have chosen to watch this movie. However, there's a couple of things and there's a couple of reasons why. I hated the way that this was shot. I hated the way that this was there's so many scenes where the music just takes over and all the other surrounding sounds just disappear, right? Like there's a couple of scenes in the car where she's throwing up after she falls in that pit and everything. And it's just music blasting over the top. When the old guy actually dies and they get to that military base and the guy's just standing there screaming, but it's just this music playing over the top. Like the way it's shot, they're trying to be so artistic with it. It's just not my thing. There was also that scene where
the music.
There's also a lot of scenes where the camera focus goes in and out. There's that one scene where they get shot at by the sniper, right? Do you remember this? When they're in the car and they get shot at by the sniper and there's two other guys and there's a sniper there trying to find where the other sniper's shooting from, right?
Oh, yeah, exciting scene.
And they get out of the car and Kirsten Dunst just lays on the ground. She's looking at the other chick journalist. That's in focus. Then that goes out of focus. It goes to the little flowers. She falls asleep on the grass. And then she wakes up in the car in the very next scene.
Oh, Rhino, to be fair, we watched a cam version. So it could have just
coming in hot.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Sometimes, guys, you got to watch these things not on your phone. You know what I mean? It's like I watched it in a movie theater.
Yeah. I watched it on my monitor.
I watched it on my monitor. But it's just those parts of this movie. It's just not my type of movie. Like
I'd rather watch Red Dawn.
They tried to put too much of that artistic element to it, and I just didn't like it.
Did Kirsten Dunst die or not? That's all I want.
Yeah, she died.
Wait, she dies?
Are we supposed to be
die?
talking about
spoilers?
I don't care enough to worry about the spoilers, to be honest. It's a shit
but
movie.
I care about our chat though, and I mean the chat. If they don't care, then I don't care. But there might be somebody, you know.
Spoiler.
Okay.
I love you. I love
up.
you in the chat, even though you're calling me stupid for my take. It's okay.
Well, let me ask you this, Mark. Like, even just some of the, you know, you and I, we talk a lot about Star Wars and continuity of Star Wars and things like that, right? What about when the old guy in the car, right? You know, when they're at the pit with the hillbillies and he's driving up behind them, flooring it. You telling me he's not hearing that car coming up behind him, right? And turn around and start shooting? That's the first thing. Hold on, Mark. There's more to this, right? He then turns around, does a U-turn, turns around and goes, "Get in the car!" like this, right? He still hasn't been shot at. He then drives away with everybody else in the car. The other dude journalist is in the back seat behind him. The guy starts shooting from behind him, and the driver is the one that gets hit by the bullets. It just happens to go through the other journalist, missing him completely, but it goes through him.
It's like that second
driver.
It must have been the guy on the grassy knoll.
That's
because they had to have him die so they could have Kirsten Dunst take a photo of him and then delete the picture so that because she can't stand seeing her friend dead. Like, it's such a gay movie.
No. I mean, first of all, I'm with you with the car coming out of nowhere business. I was thinking that myself. Hold up, man. You would have heard the car coming from like a mile away.
Yes. Especially that's like a V8 engine. And that
was it flooring it.
F-150 with a cab or what was it? An Explorer or an Expedition?
And why were they driving around in a
V8 engine?
But the bullets, I mean, I thought you knew. I mean, they want to talk about me filling in the blanks. I thought you knew the bullets. They were fat-seeking bullets, and you know the dude was very portly, so it just curved around. You know what I mean?
It's funny that you say that. I thought he loaded his gun with the same bullets that did JFK. Just so you know.
Yes, the guy in the grassy knoll shot him. You know, he was over there. He was over there in the high grass. That's where he sniped him.
So at the beginning of the movie, right, and this car is marked press, but at the beginning of the movie, they say that all journalists will be shot in DC. So why are they putting press on their car?
You know what? Maybe I'm starting to
journalists. Justin over in the chat says the movie is about the human condition during a civil war. Which, okay, yeah, I can see elements of what the human condition is during a civil war, but they don't really show. They just show the journalists the whole time. They're not really showing. I think that they get the photos, and there's constantly these snapshots of the photos that they're taking. You know, there's the dude wrapped in the tires that they light on fire. You know, that's showing the Antifa, the Antifa execution, or that whole thing. I get that part of it. Yeah, okay. But it was in my view, it was very poorly executed if they're trying to show the human condition within a civil war when all you're seeing is the journalists.
I think it took a back seat to the journalists. I think that's what
I don't know if you guys get this feeling like when you watch movies, but it makes me so angry when people make extremely dumb decisions. And so in the beginning of the movie, they're in a kind of safe zone and they know how far they're going to have to drive to get to where they're going. And not once did any of these dummies think, why don't we load up the car with gas so we don't have to stop at the hillbilly gas station where they're going to show us dead people? Right? Like, wouldn't you take extra tanks of gas with you so you don't have to stop ever and risk getting murdered by people? I don't know. That was the very beginning of the movie. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, think.
But we don't know how long
when your plot is so basic.
Yes, we do. They know where they're going. They know that they're going to DC and they're stopping in South Carolina for the fat dude. Or the fat dude needs to stop in South Carolina. They know exactly how many miles they have to drive.
And
then they can always take extra.
And they've got GPS.
And she's so pissed off about taking both of those two passengers with them to the point where if I was in that position, get out of the fucking car. You're not coming with us. I don't care what your motivations are or whatever. You're not coming. Get out.
It was such a sequence of random events just to serve the plot, right? Like my other favorite moment, not only the gas thing, I agree with you that that makes no sense. The other thing that's completely whack is when they decide the young journalist decides to hop into the other car. The only purpose for that, it was completely random, was so that they could get separated. And it was so painfully obvious.
Yeah.
100%. I got to try it.
Mark, explain that.
We're going through a civil
why she
war.
jumped in the car.
I went into this expecting Red Dawn, and that is not what I got.
There you go. Because Red Dawn was the superior film. I mean, I'll say that. I'll definitely say that. Red Dawn like laid me low. But I think this had something else on its mind. They shouldn't have named it Civil War. I mean, that's the bottom line. They were trying to tell a different type of story.
Crossing the country
they should have named it
wartime.
presidential snuff porn.
Yeah, they should have called it Execute Trump. There's another continuity issue that I have with this movie too, Mark. You know, in the end scene when they're running through the White House, or they're going through the White House with those soldiers, and the young journalist, she just jumps out into the middle of the hallway to take a photo, right? Kirsten Dunst is running across while she's snapping photos as quickly as she can, right? The young journalist just jumps in the middle of the hallway so that she can snap photos, and then Kirsten Dunst comes from the side, right? So it's kind of hard to show you, but the hallway is this way. She jumps into the middle of the hallway to try and snap a photo, right? Kirsten Dunst comes from the side, but instead of pushing her this way, right, she comes in and pushes her this way so that Kirsten Dunst can be standing in the middle of the hallway, and that's when she goes down, right? Yeah. And she takes those photos as she's being shot, right? To me, it's just stupid. That's not how that would happen. And it just takes me so out of the movie when stuff like that is just changed so that they could have this dramatic death scene, right? For no real reason, when it was completely unnecessary. Because in all honesty, if Kirsten Dunst had have survived, Lee, whatever her name is, had have survived and had have made it to the president's office, she probably would have been the one and only person standing there going, no, you can't execute him.
You think?
Oh, man, she was the one that wanted to take the photo. She's the one that wanted to do the interview.
Yeah, I mean, but at that time, it was a foregone conclusion. He was going to get killed, though. They weren't going to stop anything.
As they're running towards the White House, as they're doing that raid, right? And they're out
can
on the
we
street
just quit
and
talking
everything,
about this?
No, we can't, Fatal. Shut up. We're talking about it. People say to her, oh, they're going to execute him on sight. They've got these orders to execute him on sight.
Which is totally a hint at them trying to say this is Trump, just like he would never, which is so stupid. Like, oh, he's on his third term. Fucking Trump stepped down and left office. Yeah. That's what they always said he was going to do. He's going to be a dictator. He won't leave the White House.
After that convoy left the White House and they're shooting that convoy completely down, why do you think she's like, he's not in there? And she goes in there by herself. She doesn't want to execute him.
But I know she didn't. They wanted to interview him. But they went in there with guys who were going to execute him.
So the best way to do that is to stupidly kill the one person that didn't want to execute the president and the one journalist that probably would have stood there and taken photos of these soldiers executing the president, which would have made him a martyr, right? Which it basically did in the end anyway, even though you don't really see what happens after that.
I just got the idea that nobody gave a shit. I just got the idea that nobody gave a shit about the president at that point. You know, it's like everybody knew he was going to die. I mean, it was
didn't
just
have a reason.
Well, then what was the point of her traveling across the thing if she was just happy to see him be executed?
What were you going to say?
They were trying to get to him before he was, before they didn't want to go in like that. I thought they were going to try to get in there before the killers got in there, the assassinators.
Yeah, but what would I know? We lost the Civil War to the emus, so.
Grums, what did you want to say?
Well, I was just saying that, a couple things, right? It's like, it could have been so much better. It could have been like the young reporter, the whole movie started with, I want to get his picture. I want to get the interview. But there was no reason to hate the president for the way that it ended with the question from the reporter, that'll do, right? There was no build up to that. It could have been so much better if the young reporter wanted to be so much like Lee, that she was willing to take the extreme risk of getting that photo, right? The photo of the instant that it happens. And then Kristen Dunst realizes journalism's not worth it, right? And it's not worth her life. All of this was wasted. It was just a sequence of random events with no motivation, just so the plot could happen.
And what do you think
Sounds
that
like most
actual?
movies these days.
What do you think the ultimate plot was? Like, what do you if you had to guess what a point to this whole thing was? What do you think it was for this movie?
Propaganda.
I think it was
to execute the leader of the free world so that they could take over the leader, being the leaders of the free world.
This is a propaganda movie. It's no coincidence that it comes out during an election year.
Yep.
This is totally propaganda, and I think a lot of people are seeing it for what it is.
It could have been powerful. I see where Mark's going with this. It's painting a picture of the horrors of what would happen if a civil war actually happened. But for that to happen, you actually have to care about characters on both sides, and there was no development there. So when people get killed, it's just like, okay, whatever. Who's gonna die next?
I'd like to know.
Let me ask you something. Let me ask you something then. Now, Raging Rhino, I don't expect you to have any opinion about this anyway, because you're not American, all right? But didn't you feel anything, like when you talk about people dying, you didn't feel anything about the general concept of America dying? Like seeing those images
already dying.
I'm talking about the movie though, Flash. I'm talking about when you were watching the movie, it didn't hit you at all to see our country being blown up, to see our country falling, and knowing that we were doing this to ourselves.
I would say no, because it was so low budget, it looked terrible.
I'd like to know how much that was going to be what I was going to say. I'd like to know the budget for this movie, because I wonder if it'll make money. Apparently, the studio that made it, this is the most expensive movie they've ever made. And it's only making I think they estimate it'll make about $24 million this weekend. And next weekend, I expect it to fall off a cliff because the cinema scores aren't good. So that means it's not going to get good word of mouth.
I want to answer Mark's question. The answer right now is no. And the reason why is because the movie gave me no reason to think that this is anything other than propaganda. Like I went into this movie having thinking that I don't want to. Let me put it to this way: I don't want to see people die. I don't want to see people die anywhere, in any country, in any fucking place of the unless they're
it didn't have the power that Olympus Has Fallen had. Like Olympus Has Fallen made you care about the fact that it was America, because there was a unification there, and it sounds like from everything that there was no unifying kind of thing here. What they should have done is actually told the story from a mockumentary standpoint about a girl or a female journalist who actually is documenting how to be a war journalist, have the camera from her point of view, chaos, you don't know what's going on, and she's just trying to get to the White House to tell the story, to get the truth out. Sounds like that would have been more interesting than this.
100%. But also, too, you don't know the motivations of both sides of the Civil War.
Yeah.
So I don't know who's dying. I don't know.
Or why.
Yes, there's these Americans and there's these Americans. They're all dying. Everyone's dying. Everyone's being killed. I don't know what these people are fighting for, and I don't know what these people are fighting for.
Hold on a
I
second.
got you, bro. I just kind of think they did that intentionally because they didn't want you to take sides. I don't know. I just got a feeling that they whether they missed or they hit, and it sounds like they missed to a lot of us, but I just get the feeling that they were going for an impartial kind of, this is just a terrible picture.
That's obvious with the reasoning why they did California and Texas together.
And also the last line, right? The journalists who are the protagonists of the film, their response to the question that's asked, right, without spoilers, that was totally one-sided for no reason. There was no reason given for why that journalist would have felt that particular direction about that president.
Okay.
Let me get the super chat real quick from Hayden75 for 50. Says, listen, you might hate journalists and politicians, and that's great. You don't have to, but you don't hate them enough. Remember that. The journals are the fourth branch of government. The tree of liberty thirsts, ladies and gents. No glow intended. We are in a bad spot.
We are.
No, I agree. Journalists, and this is why I call it propaganda. It's because it's they're trying to make, and this is the reason why you're seeing titles for this movie, like headlines say, it's a little incoherent, but it's very important. It's propaganda to prop up journalists. That's why they're very hated, and they've done this to themselves. All these mainstream journalists, have done all this to themselves, and that movie's not going to save them.
Hey, Mark, I want to ask you about...
That's a shot, Rhino. You want to do a shot? Because he sent 250s.
Yeah, I will. Give me 1 second. I want to ask Mark another question. You know the scene where the guy's stuck behind the pillar and he's being shot at from high ground, right? And he's stuck behind the pillar, and the journalist guy's like holding on to the young journalist chick as they're going through that building, and then they just execute that other guy and go through. What are the two sides they're fighting for? What are we watching there?
We're just watching some crazy shit, man. And you know, like I said, if you're having a civil war actually on the streets of America, I imagine it would look a lot like that. Not everyone is taking sides. You know, if shit hits the fan and everything's going crazy all around us, we don't know who's on what side, man. Honestly, you know.
So hang on. The journalists are with those guys that are on the lower ground. The guy that's stuck behind the pillar. The journalists are with them. Could those journalists have run around and gone and stood behind the other soldiers that had the high ground?
The weird thing is, it seems like that was the case, and maybe that's a weak point of the movie as well. It just seems like they could go wherever.
Except for the fact that when they got stopped at that pit place, those guys pretty much were willing to execute them.
However, the only people who got executed were the immigrants.
Correct.
You know what I mean? These were nationalists. All right. So they purposefully wanted to hear them speak. They wanted to ask where they were from. You know what I mean? Yeah. That was the scary thing about that, because there was no way, once that guy said who he was or where he was from, there was no way he was getting out of it alive. You know what I mean? And I thought that scene was kind of powerful just because I could see that, you know, just because of where we are
probably
today.
The most powerful part of that movie.
It's probably the best part of the movie, actually, when he is asking them where they're from. Despite the continuity issues within the car and all of that thing that I mentioned.
Can we just stop talking about this trash movie already?
Fatal. Stop being lofty.
What is this short attention span thing? And sit still, man.
Just pretend like we're talking about Zack
Snyder. I gotta get a shot glass. I gotta get a shot glass for Hayden. I'll be right back.
Look, this movie's been done so much better before. I mean, movies about the historical Civil War, right? The portrayal of like how families are torn apart by it. You want to just display the destruction of America. They could have played all that up, but instead, you know what they went with? They went with journalism is hard, and we're the most oppressed class, and we go through the most. And you have this war-hardened reporter that's supposed to be so freaking jaded, freaking screaming and losing it because one of his comrades is shot. He's the last person who should have lost it like that.